Welcome to No Shame in Our Game. I am Lacey, your co-host who is a little angry about shame this morning. Here with my other co-host, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Lacey. I'm validating your anger around shame. I think anger can be very healthy and very useful. So, not untethered, not unfettered. That's the word I was looking for. Not unfettered anger, but I think anger can be a very useful tool. So, I support your anger around shame.
Thank you very much. I'm excited because we have our next shame interview. It's not with one of us, it's with someone new. And I wasn't even there, so I get to listen as a listener.
Yes, let's first of all give old lady Sarah over here some technical prompts for running a recording solo. That's always a joy. And then so thankful that Jiemi was willing to come and be open about shame. Say, as I try to say to people all the time, which is there is strength and vulnerability. And by sharing these experiences, we are actually empowering ourselves and empowering others by showing that we've all gone through some stuff and we've survived. Here's how we navigated it. And very delightfully, the conversation went someplace we weren't even planning, which was so fun. Thank you to Jiemi for sharing. And I'm excited to listen again because it was like one of those conversations that I was like, oh my gosh, I could go so many directions with this conversation. So I'm excited to listen back and hear it all again.
Well, let's jump right in.
Hi, Jiemi. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a little technical difficulty. I always appreciate people who can be patient through that and then still show up and reset. So thank you for coming. I am here with Jiemi, who is the founder of Nori, which we will talk more about in the interview. But Jiemi, if you could tell our audience just a little bit about you, like where you are, whatever feels relevant to the conversation.
I'm so happy to be here. I think it's a very important discussion. So I'm Jiemi Gao. I am right now based in New York City. I am a mom of two. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old. I'm also founder of Nori, like you mentioned, which is a new kind of social network for moms. I think important for this conversation, I am this is kind of like a 1.5 generation immigrant. And I not exactly like first generation, but kind of half grew up in Latin America. She grew up in Canada. And I think that has a lot of big impact on my life. But yeah, happy to dive into, any of the topics that you have in mind.
Yes, thank you. I really value and appreciate that people are willing to open up about shame, but I really have always had this feeling when we started No Shame, the joke was if everyone opened their front doors at the same time, and this is about like the physical shame, like what people feel about their homes, like the laundry and the dirty baseboards. And I always said if we all opened our doors at the same time, we'd realize we're almost all of us are in the same place. Right. And so it feels like that transitioning into talking about actual shame that we carry, like, oh my gosh, if we all kind of open up our emotional doors at the same time, we'll realize we're not the only one who thinks this or feels this way. So I appreciate you willing to be vulnerable. I do want to let the audience know how we know each other. And
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I know you through Nori, but I actually can't remember. Was it through Like Minded Collective? Is that where I first met you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
You're
an
right.
online networking platform. Jiemi
Yeah.
was asking for people to give their input on this new platform. Well, it's not new anymore, but I was so passionate about what you were creating because I wish I had had that when I was a new mom.
Mhm.
And so I've been one of your biggest fans ever since I learned about what you're creating. We held a group a couple weeks ago. I have one child. And so we held a one and done small group discussion. And I realized I had a hard time even telling our audience about it in the newsletter. And I was like, oh gosh, there's some shame around this. And so talking with other moms who have one child, it was so therapeutic to shine a light on that. So I feel like Nori is helping with the shame aspects that we carry around motherhood, which
Yeah.
is its own
I
podcast series.
I yeah, no, I think what happens in that session and in a lot of the small group discussions is we kind of list the covers a little bit. And I say a little bit because, we only had an hour. But I think when you're in a room with people that you don't know in your kind of day-to-day social circles or your network, you almost feel relieved and you kind of let go of that expectation, maybe, and maybe this fear of being judged by people who are like closest to you. And I think that unlocks something in all of the participants where they are just sort of so much more open to sharing. And I see that as not only in because I've hosted, I think, 11 small group discussions now. And I see it like over and over again. Right. And I'm like kind of trying to figure out, okay, like what is this thing that is working? And I think that's part of the equation, which is, that fear of being judged, the fear of failing someone else's expectations of you that gets removed. And I think in turn, the shame kind of gets, you know, goes to the sidelines as well.
You said so many amazing things. And I'm already in my brain like, no, you have to keep this conversation under 4 hours. You just said so many wonderful things. I love that insight about the people that we're around the most. We kind of protect that shame even more from them, right? And there is something about being with people who you don't know as intimately.
Mhm.
That's really interesting. And yeah, I like that you're having this really neat insight with these small group discussions. Like, you didn't realize you were going to be unlocking
Nope.
this way of people connecting. And it is so beautiful. And it was very freeing for me. Yeah, I didn't know those people. And that I knew one person kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other people I was meeting for the first time, and it felt very comfortable talking with them.
Yeah. And because it was not only that you were strangers, but you also had something very deeply you that's in common with those people, right? So I think without any of those factors, it wouldn't work as well. But when you put all of them together, I think, there's a little bit of a magic that goes on there.
Yes, that is, yes. Again, I've got so many thoughts and I'm trying to compartmentalize them because I did bring you on as a guest as Jamie because I'm curious about your own shame. And we all have different types of shame. Like some are deep, some are more towards the surface. And I emailed you and you actually had some really wonderful insight into some shame that you'd be willing to share with our audience.
Yeah.
So what's the shame that you wanted to share and talk about?
Yeah, actually, I thought about it even more after I sent you that email. And I think, and that's why I wanted to mention sort of, that I was in a kind of a 1.5 generation immigrant, because I think it runs from there. The shame, like the first kind of time where I experienced shame was probably from when I, first immigrated to Canada. And like we didn't have much, right? And I think there was also this, I came from a country where I didn't speak English. So, it was hard to communicate in the first place. And then understand a lot of the cultural context. So, like, if people were referring to some pop culture references or they're referring to, I don't know, like back in the days, like cartoons or TV shows, like I just didn't know any of those. I didn't watch any of those. And so I think like my first very intimate experience with Shane was from there and from that time in my life. And I think like back then it was, I actually when you first reach out, I was even just thinking about like, what is shame? Like, how do you know it's not shame? Like, it's shame, and it's not just you're being, embarrassed or other feelings. And I think the big thing for me is like I felt maybe just truly like inferior to the people, right? Like the people that were like my classmates, where they just knew so much more than me and they could fit in like so much better, right? Than me. Like I just couldn't, I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know anything. Like it just, I think inherently I felt that I was inferior. And I think that's a pretty big signal of shame.
That is, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. And that's what I like love about this series is it's like looking at it from all these different angles and
Mhm.
and it can mean something different to everybody. But yes, there is that. I hadn't thought about it as inferior. I thought about it more from the angle of like we all want to belong to a group. That is
Mhm.
very much what that is, right? Like if you feel inferior, you feel like you're not on the inside of the group. And just so I can picture, how old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was 12.
You were oh geez, 12.
So
And
like
then
the
and where
teen.
what's
Almost
that?
a teen. Like
Um oh yeah, no,
almost a
that's in the
yeah.
thick of it. And where did you move from?
From China. So I was born in this city in China called Hangzhou. That's where you probably don't know it, but that's where Alibaba was from. Like that's where Alibaba's headquartered, where DeepSeek is. It's kind of like a tech. It's like the Silicon Valley of China, basically.
I have so much compassion. And I know this is happening all over the world, but I'm just picturing, I mean, my son's 13, so I can picture this so easily. Like you as a 12-year-old, right? You go from this community where you speak the same language, you know the same cultural expectations, and then that's a huge switch to a different language, a different culture, different. I imagine the weather was different. I mean, everything's like
Yeah.
the food is different. Like everything is
Yeah.
different, and you instantly want to feel like you belong.
Well, yeah, I think I was just so naive too. Like I thought it was about the language, right? So I worked so hard. I think it was for the first 3 months, kind of just like, there are these like workbooks, like English as a second language kind of workbooks that you work through. I think I was working through so many of them where my teachers, like one day called my mom in and I was like, are you making her do this? Because they were worried that like I was getting pressure from, my parents for this, but she was like, no, like she's just doing it herself because I think I just, I was like, I need to be able to like talk to these people, you know? So I think that was a big, I think, driver for me, like to, I guess the shame was a driver almost like for me to work hard. But I, I think I finally realized like it's not just the language. Like there's just so much that has changed that I was like kind of out of my control. Like I can't, make up for all of that on my own. So yeah, it was a very defining, I think, period of my life.
Stay in the know with all things Practical Hug. Come over to practicalhug.substack.com and sign up for our weekly newsletter. It is a small drop of joy in your inbox. It's usually a 2-minute read. There's a funny picture. We let you know what's going on, and we share something uplifting to brighten your day. How how did you I mean, I know when you're in it, you don't really know, but looking back, like, do you see a point at which the shame started to feel less? Or, like, was there a turning point in that journey for the 12-year-old?
I think I still experience it to this day a little bit. I think my biggest turning point was probably when I went to the MBA program at INSEAD. So INSEAD is it's it's a like a business school basically that offers like MBA programs or executive management programs. It's based out of Paris and Singapore, and they also have a third campus in Abu Dhabi. So it's a very global kind of organization that if you think, most people like kind of do their MBAs and business school in the US, I would say INSEAD is one of the excuse me, one of the most reputable programs globally. And I think when I went to INSEAD, I think I just had that feeling of belonging back. Like you were saying, like maybe shame comes out of not feeling like I belong. I think that was a year where I felt like I belong here, right? Like everybody in the program or had very similar experiences to mine, or they have been, we call ourselves like global citizens because we don't live in one place. Like we have moved in to different countries, have experienced very different cultures. All of us, so one of the requirements to enter to go to INSEAD is you have to speak at least two languages when you first go to the school, and then you will have to sort of graduate from a third language when you leave the school. So they do like this exam. And I think the language part in itself kind of like that requirement almost is something that made sure that everybody kind of had that kind of background of, the diversity, the culture, and the just like the openness of the mindset. So I think when I went to the school, I think that was the first time in a long time where I was like, I belong to this place. And I like thrived there. Like I had an amazing time just be myself. So yeah, I could think it's the environment, I think a lot of the times that really shapes what you think of yourself.
Yeah, well, okay. I've again so many questions, but my big one is what is the third language that you learned?
Oh, yeah. No, so I spoke Mandarin and English, right? Fluently. And I learned French when I was in Canada. Like I learned it from grade 7 to 12. So I already knew French. I just needed to sort of get to or past that level that they were asking for. So, and it was part of the program was in France. So I think that was just kind of a perfect, place.
Oh my gosh. So I'm just like in awe of anyone who knows more than one language and you know three. So like I was already a huge fan of yours and now I'm like fangirling on a whole nother level. But that's not what this show is about. So I'm going to put that in a little box and put it to the side. I like what you said about the environment. And it's so interesting because it's like the environment made you want to fit in. And then you had this experience of being this kind of outsider. But then when you went to this MBA program, it was like all these outsiders were able to come together.
Yeah.
So there's like this really interesting journey with that is it's unique, and you were able to find other people who also had that very unique experience, and then that's what made you feel like you were in the group or
Yeah.
included.
Yeah. We
Wow.
used to joke, all of us at one point in our lives felt like an outsider, and we all like when people ask, so we never ask the question like, where are you from at INSEAD? Because it's a very complicated question. You can never say with like a straight answer, I'm from, you know, like the US or I'm from Canada. It's kind of like, oh, I lived like in this city and then in this city, and I moved to like, this to this place for work. And so it's very, nobody kind of has a hometown. It's kind of like, I think that's why we say we're global citizens because, we're truly like have just lived all over the world.
Again, it's so like I am so curious about shame thinking about the geographic aspect of it, right? Like if you went to a really, really small rural town and everybody was born there, raised there, lived their whole
Mm.
lives there, right? If somebody comes in who's a global citizen, they're the total outsider. They're like, you'd easily feel ostracized or excluded. But if you took one of those people from that little tiny small rural town and put them in this MBA program with all these other people, then that person, just by sheer environmental location, and and I know that's like not a huge aha, but there is this kind of, for me, an aha around the shame element of like, nothing's changed about those people. The only thing that changed was the geography, right?
Yeah, yeah. But I do wonder though, now you bring this up, is, that person who's a global citizen that gets plucked, in that rural town, I think that person will have an easier time kind of adjusting just because they have been an outsider, right? Because they are kind of used to it's like this skill of adaptation, right? Like they are used to adapting to the environment around them. And I think that person who's from the rural town going into sort of this outsider world, let's call it, they would have, I think, easier time to adapt as well because the people who are the outsiders will understand how someone like, the person from the rural town would feel, right? Because they have been outsiders themselves. So then they will, you know, kind of stay open-minded to that kind of experience. I think what gets difficult is when you put someone who's from a rural town into a place that is also kind of homogeneous and, kind of a closed circle. I think that's when it gets really hard.
Oh, oh, absolutely. Yes. And I totally agree. And when I wrote down when you were talking about how like all those global citizens would be very understanding of the person who maybe has never left their town, I'm like, yeah, that's empathy, right? I mean, I sometimes hesitate on using empathy and sympathy because I know there's nuances, but one of the not apathy words, right? Empathy or sympathy, whatever it is, right? Isn't that sort of the antidote to shame? Like because
But I think
it
both of them are.
are they because I was just thinking like 12-year-old you who shows up in this town in Canada, if all those kids, if they could stop for a second and have the understanding, I mean, that's a lot to ask of 12-year-olds,
Yeah.
but if they could stop and have the understanding of what that journey would have been like for you, they could have
Mhm.
shown up. And isn't that all what it is seeing things through somebody else's eyes? Like,
Mhm.
and I actually just said that to my son this morning. We were talking about Teacher Appreciation Week, and I was trying to get him to understand, like, can you imagine what it's like to show up as a teacher every day and you have 35 different kids every 45 minutes and most of those kids don't want to be there and are not happy to be there. I'm like, can you imagine how hard? So, I mean, I think that's the goal that I have raising a child is teaching that, like seeing it through the other person's eyes. And then I also wrote down, so I wrote down friction equals growth. And I wrote that down because I just was listening to a podcast this morning and it was brought up about how the friction is how we get stronger. So the example was this gentleman. It's actually the guy who wrote Atomic Habits. He was talking about how it was through writing when it wasn't easy that he became a better writer. And the other example was lifting weights. If the weights are easy, you're not going to grow muscle. And I was just thinking, I mean, as much as like want to take all that shame away from 12-year-old you, I'm like, oh, but that is what helped you grow into this
Yeah.
amazing trilingual, like founder of an online platform. So I think the piece of the puzzle is, but when do we get to drop the shame if it's still hurting us? Like once we've grown from it, I think that's what's hard. I was calling it on the last episode. It's like the roller bag of shame that we carry with us everywhere. Like when do we finally just leave the roller bag on the side of the road and walk away from it and stop? Because at that point, it's not serving us anymore.
I guess I wonder if shame is something that is just another feeling that we, you know, might not want to get rid of completely. And the reason why I say that is I actually read Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart book, and where it's truly an encyclopedia of or feeling basically, and she described every feeling in detail. And we both have kids, so like, we also, from when my kids were very young, like it's always about talking about feelings. And the saying is always like every feeling is okay, right? Like you're human, you can feel all of those things. And I think maybe and Brené Brown had shame as one of those feelings in her book. And I guess I'm just wondering if shame as a feeling, might always kind of, come up here and there. But I think maybe it's when we let it, you know, kind of grow and direct our choices and our actions. I think that's maybe when we need to be more aware of, how it comes up, where it comes up, and just know that for ourselves, so that we make, the right choices at the end of the day.
In an unhealthy way, right? When
Mm-hmm.
it becomes the predominant driver, or it's driving you in an unhealthy way, I think is
Mm-hmm.
when we get to examine it. But what I got out of this, and I'm trying to land the plane because I could talk to you all day. But what I want to land the plane is like there's this beautiful outcome from this difficult journey that you went from. Not that you wouldn't be who you are today without the shame, but you're seeing your shame in like a very understanding light. Does that feel accurate for me to say that?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it opened up my world almost. Yeah, I think definitely made me more empathetic. I think the other thing you talked about sympathy, right? Like I think empathy is coming from where, I have experienced the same thing as you, so I'm empathetic of, your situation. But I think sympathy comes from perspectives, right? It comes from like having been exposed to a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different situations. You have met a lot of people who are living like very different lives. And I think that brings sympathy, and it helps you sometimes let go of your own shame, and it helps you kind of help others let go of their shame as well. And I think a very direct example of that is like we're talking about the Nori conversations, right? And all of these moms, they're talking to a lot of other people who have, you know, a similar experience. Yes, so that's where empathy shows up. But then also, these people are all from different walks of life, right? They have different circumstances as well, even though they may have made the same choice. So it kind of broadens their perspective too, so that I remember you saying at the end of our session for One and Done, like you just see like no mom experienced the exact same journey, right? And everybody, we're all kind of making our best choices and decisions. So let's not judge, right? Like, because when judgment is in place, right, what we'll say, oh, like, you shouldn't have done that, or don't do that, or why did you do that? Like, that's where shame sets in. And when you have those perspectives, and when you are exposed to just, the last versions of how life could be, you judge less as well.
That was so beautiful. Like I want to write it on a magnet and like put it on everyone's fridge, right? Like I have this like aspirational goal to make the world a better place. And I'm like, yes, what you just said was so beautiful. And I just wrote like a shorthand. I just wrote on my notes paper, I wrote a down arrow on judgment and an up arrow on understanding as just like a quick shorthand.
Yeah.
As much as I could talk to you all day, I do want to be respectful of your time. And I feel like our conversation has come to a beautiful point. But what I want to do now is give the opportunity for you to tell our audience a little bit more about Nori, because Nori
Mm.
has done so much for me already, and I see the potential to help so many moms, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit. So if you would like to share what Nori is and how people can get involved in Nori, I would love to hear more.
Yeah, just a quick pitch, but I also want to hit on the friction is growth piece that you mentioned, because that is essentially what Nori is as well. So Nori is a new social network for moms where there is one-on-one mentorship. So you can go on Nori and search for mentors on some 300 plus topics that are on the platform today. You can, talk to those moms one on one on a phone call or video chat or in person, whatever you wish to do, or just through the chats function in the app itself. You can also attend events that's hosted by Nori, but also by other Nori members. So I host group circles that are recurring sessions for the same group of moms, on a monthly basis, for example, 30 minutes a month on a particular topics. And those are a little bit more life stage based. So there's a group on early motherhood for people with kids under 2, for example. So those are group circles. And then there are also small group discussions like the one that you mentioned on One and Done. And those are very much topic based. It's an hour. It has also a small group of people, which is 4 to 8 people. There's no expert on in the group discussion, and that is very intentional. So it's all peers, and you just I will kind of moderate the conversation, but sometimes I'm also a participant because I'm going through the exact same thing as a lot of the Nori members. So we'll just have very, supportive, real, safe place to have that conversation. And then there's other in-person events and, events that I host as well. Oh, and there's like a monthly town hall for you to meet others. So those are kind of the community, a little bit more community group based conversations that you can have. And yeah, and then there's a community sort of board, or now I'm calling it a mom corner, where you can post stories, resources, requests, and kind of like, in a mom group, but it's a little bit less noisy, I would say.
Yeah, I like how you said less noisy, because there's a lot of places out there that you could, Reddit or Facebook groups or whatever, but like this one is very safe, very calm, very intentional. And I'll just tell the audience, if they're looking for a touch point to relate to, I could have really used this when I was a new mom because my son had colic, and I felt a lot of shame around that, and I didn't know who to talk to. So that would have been a beautiful outlet for me. But now, as a mom with a teenager, I actually just signed up for mentorship hours with somebody who was highlighted in the newsletter to talk about this new stage of having a teenager. It's different. I'm not quite sure what words to use now. And so it'll
Yeah.
be nice to talk with somebody who was willing to talk about it, because, yeah, I feel a little embarrassed that I almost feel like I'm having to start again in my parenting journey in a way. I'm like, wait, I figured it out. And now the game has changed. So
Yeah.
there's so much beautiful opportunity. There's so many topics, small group topic discussions. And so
Yeah.
thank you for creating this. It's such a beautiful resource, and I want every mom on their mom journey to know about this opportunity. So thank you. Thank you for your time and talking about shame. Thank you for creating Nori. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate everything you do.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a really nice conversation. I mean, I don't think about shame, but I know it's there, and it just, this has made me more aware myself as well. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jamie. Welcome back. Oh my goodness. Again, so many thanks to Jamie for opening up about her story. such an amazing perspective that, I mean, this is just, I love learning. I love knowing. I love being curious. I love hearing about everyone's experiences. And again, it's just that whole thing. If everyone could experience everybody else's, through their eyes, walk through their shoes, whatever you want to say, if everyone could experience that point of view, the world would just be such a different place. Um, and yeah, that was really vulnerable and strong of Jiemi to share her experience.
I have to say, Sarah, you keep saying of shame grows in the dark. So I just, as usual, bringing some shame to the light so it doesn't need to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to do some moments of gratitude?
Do you have one? Like, I felt like you were really excited to do it.
Well, what happens is every time I say moments of gratitude, I have this mini flashback in my head to The Daily Show with Jon Stewart when I was younger, Moments of Zen. So every time I get to say moments of gratitude, this like little like flame inside my soul goes, moments of Zen. It's like this happy nostalgia flashback, which honestly, that's my moment of gratitude. Is that I love so well, okay. So layering on top of that, I guess we're doing mine right now. My son has gotten into watching The Daily Show with, is that what it's called? With John Oliver. What's that one called? Now I'm confusing.
Last week tonight.
Last week night. Thank you. Okay. And I was just and he is eating it up. He loves it. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I love this. I grew up watching The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and now my son is enjoying Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. And it's really going to shape and form him. And yeah, it just made me so happy. So I guess that I did mine and I didn't even know it was going to come out. That's the best kind of joy. Lacey, I would love for you to share your moment of gratitude.
Mine's a little twisty, so stick with me. So my daughter is now home full time, my older daughter Iris, and she is up in my business like no other. She is the sweetest. She's 5. She's the sweetest thing that's ever been. But she brings me the most fascinating questions and thoughts regularly. And they always take me off guard and delight me. Yesterday, she asked me why Sarah and I don't have meetings every day. We didn't have a meeting yesterday. And she was like, why are you not meeting with Sarah? How do you decide to meet? And I was just like, whew, what a question to think through. She has told me she wants every day to be Mother's Day because she wants me to know I'm the best mom every day. Delight. She is weirdly morbid right now and brings up people who have died, people and our dogs that have died almost daily. She cut a bang, a single lock of hair on Monday. And we ended up having a tearful conversation about bangs, about wanting to be beautiful, and all of these things. And as I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the first of many conversations we're going to be having about this. And it was just, and then we cut her we have some bangs. She has a little bit of a new look right now. She's very rocker chick, Stevie Nicks. I don't know how, she needs to be wearing flowy outfits, Florence and the Machine. It is a look and I'm loving it. So yeah, it's been a lot, but it's been a delight to have her up in my business all day, every day. And to, frankly, probably get a lot of what my mom got, because girlfriend talks a lot and loudly, to which I have heard my whole life. So it's been a journey and I'm enjoying every minute of it. That's a lie. I'm not enjoying every minute of it. I'm retroactively enjoying it. In the moment, I'm annoyed as hell, but it is a joy either way.
I kind of want to have a daily Iris musing. Every day I just want to hear what is the question of the day? Oh, that's it. Iris's question of the day. That's very inquisitive for her age to think. I mean, that she's got a lot going up in that noodle right now.
She does. It prompted us to play meeting for a while. She went and got a notebook and sat down next to me while I was working, and we played meeting. We planned out how we were going to cut her hair. So, and then I said, the meeting's over. We're going to cut your hair. And she was like, wait, we're not going to keep meeting? I'm like, no, you actually have to do stuff after a meeting. You can't just have meetings about meetings about meetings, which, don't get me wrong, I would love. But you actually have to do it at a certain point. And she's like, okay, all right.
I do want to touch on very quickly about, you said it was morbid, her bringing up people and animals who have passed. I think that's beautiful and wonderful, and I would embrace that because their memories are still alive, and I think that's beautiful. I don't know. I feel like morbid. This is around that whole thing about like what words mean to different people. I always grew up thinking morbid was like very negative, and I'm like, and so maybe that's my hang up on the word. I think it's awesome that she talks about people and animals who have passed.
I don't necessarily mean negative, just she talks about death every day. So I just genuinely mean it as in relating to death. It's fascinating. It is sweet at the same time. It is also fascinating to see. So my grandmother passed away 2 years ago now. Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago now. Maybe it's 3, whatever. But there are pictures of her doing things with Iris. And Iris tells me that those are her memories of her. And it's just so interesting to see those memories come together. Because do I really think she like remembers them? No, but she has a version of the memory because of those pictures and that kind of stuff. So it's been really fascinating to see because of that. Yeah. I mean, we talk about my grandma Ludwig almost every day because of Iris's curiosity, and just that is something that I know Grandma Ludwig would love because she loved hearing all the stuff Iris was up to. So it is really nice in a lot of ways.
Shout out to all the souls who have passed that we love.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Indy and Luna get a shout out regularly. Yeah, we're doing lots of talking about them.
Beautiful. Well, thank you to our listeners. Thank you for being curious about shame with us. We're really excited about the power that this is going to unlock. And I just had a vision of wearing a cape that's like, my superpower is unlocking shame. But that means we need to cut things off. I want to say thank you, Lacey. It was so wonderful to see you. And thank you to our audience.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of No Shame in Our Game. We know life can be tough, but carrying the hard together makes it easier. If you would like to have more tools or more options available to you to help make life easier and more enjoyable, go to practicalhug.com. And if you have something that you would like to talk about on the show or make sure we talk about on the show, go to practicalhug.com/submit. Let's keep this conversation going and make life easier for you and the people you care about.